This is Things Police See, first-hand accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, here with you as always, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here for the show. And thank you for being interested in hearing these truly insane stories. I'm so glad you joined us. Very, very happy with the messages I've been getting lately and the people subscribing. So I really, really do. I love to see it. I love to get the messages from you guys. I will confess, I did put myself over the last few years on all the platforms, and there are sometimes I've created things, I've created groups and other things. And some of them I don't even I don't know how to get to it unless I get a notification that someone's asking me a message. So I've gone into those recently and found that there's been messages that I missed the notification. I don't know. Facebook doesn't make it easy, man. You have a group in Facebook. It's you think it would be simple. You go to the Facebook page and be like, oh, go to the group. There's 10 steps to do it. So I apologize. You can always get to me directly, steve@thingspolicec.com. I will see that come in almost guaranteed. I check the junk folder all the time and I check the email. So if you really need to get a message to me, please just reach me at steve@thingspolicec.com. I appreciate that. And also, if you want to be a guest, somebody who was a copper, active or retired, or you yourself want to come on, I would love to have you. Even if you're active copper now, we can use a pseudonym. We don't have to divulge. We can just do an area where you work. We don't have to divulge where you work or the name of your agency, anything like that. So I would love to have you. These conversations I have every week are they're fantastic. The highlight of my week. It's so much fun to sit down with these coppers and hear the wildest stuff they go to. And it's so cool because it's so different regionally and throughout the country, and depending on the agency, it's really fascinating to me. And I love it, guys, and I'm glad you're here. So today's guest, excited to have him. He did 24 years with NOLA, New Orleans Police Department. He was a sergeant there. He was on the crash squad. Later in life, he joined the Mounted Patrol, 47 years old, and learned how to ride and became the commander of that squad, which is fascinating. Now works for a smaller agency in the great state of Kansas. Without further ado, let me bring on the great David Leang. David!
How you doing, sir?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for joining me, man. Hey, I see we have similar struggles. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Yeah, we have similar struggles. We work for smaller agencies, and we were supposed to record earlier in the day, and you're like, someone's out sick. I got to go in. It happens.
Yes, sir.
That's a bummer about being a cop, these hours.
Well, that, and you miss all the major holidays and weekends. Holidays and weekends just haven't meant anything to me since the late 90s, because that's when they need you. That's when crimes happen the most. That's when people need security. And so that's when we go to work. Just like when the hurricane comes, we don't evacuate. We put on the uniform and go in. So
yeah,
that's all of us.
Yeah, my dad told me that when I signed up to do this. He's like, well, for the first 10 years at least, don't be counting on being home for the holidays. You'll be working. It just comes with the job, comes with the gig. Let me ask you, so Louisiana to Kansas, how do you like Kansas? How do you find it? Any culture shock?
Yes. I really like the people in Kansas. I find them individually, they're a lot friendlier and they're a lot more laid back. Coming from New Orleans, as yes, Louisiana, but particularly New Orleans, we're very loud and we tend to be really in your face. And I didn't realize I was like that until I came up here. And people see how I talk and people see how I act, and they're like, damn, Dave, why don't you calm down a little bit? And I'm like, I'm just being me. I'm not mad or anything. It's just how we roll. But in New Orleans, when you walk into the squad room or you walk into the common area, you have to say hello to everybody. It's just how we are. If you don't say hello to everybody, it means you got a beef with someone.
Really?
And here, yes, it's not quite that way. So I had one of my coworkers came into a room where I was to grab something. He came back again, And I kind of had to say, can I ask you a question? And he said, sure. And I said, what the F is your problem? And then we had a conversation from there. And I just figured out that not everybody is as, I don't know quite how we say it. It's not friendly, but people here are just not all in your face, in your business. It's just, they prefer to just be quiet and laid back. So it's a cultural difference.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never forget my dad retired, and I'm from New England, have been my whole life, so is my family. And in New England, totally normal not to say hi to everybody and to just ignore someone. I mean, it's just the culture in general in New England it's not that they're laid back, they're colder to people. So when my dad started,
probably a way to put it.
Yeah, they just won't warm up to people. But they say, if you warm up to, if a New Englander warms up to you, it could be a friend for life for you if they really start to like you, But he started traveling the country with my mom. They bought a trailer and they were going like to California in the Southwest. And my dad had this story from California where he's like, I'm standing in line at the grocery store. Everybody's talking to me. The lady behind me is asking me questions. The lady in front of me is saying stuff to me. He's like, these people don't just stand in line. They want to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds nice. Like it sounds friendly.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't used to it, So it kind of sounds like the New Orleans folks are a little bit more like, I always thought the South was like, the people just seem sweeter in general. Even if they don't mean it, they just seem more cordial.
I've heard that, and I think that is true in some cases. You get so jaded on this job being a cop that, especially my last 10 years in New Orleans, the police weren't all that popular. Nationwide, we weren't. That's a whole nother story right there. But generally speaking, though, I see what they're saying. Like I said, in New Orleans, you got to say hello to everybody. Everybody's your cousin. Everybody's your friend. And up here in the Midwest, no, not so much. It's not that they're not your friend. It's just that they got stuff to do, and they're just more about that. So I guess it's a matter of taste. I guess now I can do either. I'm kind of used to both of them. So,
well, I tell you one thing, because in New England, we look at Midwesterners as like super friendly. So if you had gone from New Orleans to New England, you would have been like, F this place. These people are jerks.
Probably so.
Yeah, as you make your way up to the Northeast, people just become less and less friendly. I don't know why that is, but it seems to be true. But then again, if you go even further north and east and go into Canada, they're nice again. Like the people in New Brunswick and up in Nova Scotia, super friendly, super nice. So it's not the weather. It's got to be something to do about the puritanical influences. I don't know.
Well, I hadn't been to Canada since I was a kid, but I do go to New York occasionally, and New Yorkers don't talk to you for nothing. New Yorkers are all about, they're looking straight forward or down and walking really fast. But I wasn't expecting a warm reception in New York, so I just kind of fit in there because I was just about where I had to go, where I had to be, who I needed to talk to, and back to my cousin's place. So, like you said, different parts of the country are just very different. It's kind of interesting, and it's fun to explore.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. I don't think people realize that I know they don't because I see them make videos about it, but like people in Europe don't understand how, like they bag on us a lot for not traveling. Americans aren't well traveled enough. It's like, guys, our country's massive.
Yes.
And within it has its own cultures. It's very different. So we have every majestical beauty you can imagine in this country. And you could spend your life living here and traveling just America and be totally satisfied. We have everything. We have the tropics, we have the mountains, we have desert, we have everything there. I don't think they get that we're kind of like, to me, it's amazing that we can even function. We're functioning under one like president, really, like because it's such a diverse place. You could, if you looked at America and you didn't have any foreknowledge of how we operated, you would be like, all right, this area has a leader, this area has a leader, this area has a leader, and then like maybe they all cooperate in some way. I would never think that there would be like 350 million people all being led by one person
Yeah.
because of the diversity of the way the regions are. But that's a ball yarn for another story, for another interview. But David, I want to get into your first hot call. So a young officer, Leang, on the road. What was the first call you had that like gave you the adrenaline drop or like really made your heart pound?
Well, and I like to joke about that. I was never that young. I was never as young as the officers that I work with now. I came on the job at 31. I was 32 when I hit the street. But the first hot call was really hot. It was my first call off of the FTO program. So I'm in the car by myself thinking I'm going to conquer the world now, and it was a house fire. So, okay, the house fire. And the call came out over the radio that there was a 12-year-old girl trapped in the house. So I'm about to become a fireman with no training, no equipment, and I'm probably going to die. And I'm thinking that. I come up to the house, and yeah, it was fully engulfed. And I get out the car, I'm screaming over the radio, get me, it was the NOFD, New Orleans Fire Department. So get me NOFD here. And somebody came and told me, well, the 12-year-old girl is out. The only thing that was left in the house was a fish. So the fish passed, and I became not a pedestrian, but I became an observer at that point. And up until that point, I had never been so relieved in my life, because when I drove up, I could just see myself being forced to go in that house, and I would have, but again, with no training and stuff. So that was my actual first call for service as a police officer in a car. So
that's crazy. Yeah, you're pulling up and you're thinking like, am I gonna run into this house? I mean, fully engulfed house fires are probably by the time you got within 15 feet of the front door, your skin is burning.
Well, I'd have got hurt, and hopefully I would have survived. But like I said, when they say someone's trapped inside, what are you going to do? So that was a very high pucker factor on that one. And then there were others. But as far as the first one, that was it. So.
Well, thank goodness. Sad for the fish. You're probably boiled alive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm sure it was.
I've been to a few of them where you pull up and you're still on the street. And if your window's down, right away, the side of your face is starting to burn. Like, I mean, the heat is incredible with a house fire. So nuts. And then you got to worry, like, are there propane tanks out back? Do they have natural gas? All these things you don't know. Like you.
Oh, and we don't have oxygen. The logical thing to do would be to go in as low as you can and try to assess the situation. But again, we don't have bunker suits or the oxygen or the training to use any of that stuff. So as much as we competed sometimes with the firemen, as much as we made fun of firemen, I really liked fire and I really liked EMS because I didn't want to deal with fires and I didn't want to deal with medical. So, I mean, somehow or another, as police officers, we always find ourselves dealing with all of the above. But as far as the training and the knowledge, my generation still did not really receive medical training. I didn't start carrying a tourniquet until probably 7 years ago, right before I retired from New Orleans. So we could stand to the side and say, oh man, that sucks. Oh, that's bad. But that's about it. And call the medical professionals and tell them to get here on a code 3. They have here where I work now, they have code red, code orange, and things like that, code blue. But we just used code 1, 2, or 3. And we were always saying 3. 3 is just get there as quick as you can. So.
Yeah. We use priority 1, 2, and 3. I don't know why it's not code, but it's priority. Everybody's got to come up with their own thing.
It's different everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. Yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm a big fan of fire and EMS because when I go to a gnarly injury or something where we're like the stopgap, like we just do what we can, and then knowing they're coming with elevated training to take over is makes all the world a difference when you're doing it. Cause
yes,
there's nothing worse than, especially for a cop, being in over your head with something and not really knowing what to do. Cause we're supposed to show up and know what to do. We're supposed to take charge. And when you show up to a kind of complex medical thing or a really gnarly injury, maybe something you can't get a tourniquet on because it's too high up or whatever. Yeah, those are probably the most stressful things to me. I hate them, and I work in a rural place too. And our fire department is actually really good at getting there pretty quickly. We have a bunch of dedicated volunteer firefighters that are EMTs and beyond. We even have like a nurse practitioner on the call force, which is great. But yeah, I absolutely love it when I know those guys are coming, because it's like some things too. It's like, I just like, if it's not, if they're not bleeding out and they don't need a tourniquet or whatever, I'll just like put like a towel over it, or let me just cover this with a bunch of things so I don't have to see it. And then the good guys, I call them the good guys. The good guys will come and they'll hook you up. You know what I mean? But yeah, I can't imagine back in the day when they were giving you guys like, not even like first responder training, just kind of like hold it down. And the other thing too is like the crashes have some of the nastiest injuries. And it's really hard when you work at a place with not a lot of people, and you also have to worry about scene safety. So it's like, you have cars bearing down, but you're dealing with someone who like really needs your attention. That to me is also like incredibly stressful. That is like, such a nightmare to me, dealing with, you can't do the scene safety because you have a patient that needs you,
Well, we had a large stretch of the Interstate 10 that ran through New Orleans, elevated interstate, and we'd have accidents, and you try to get somebody to divert the traffic down on ground level. But there were several times that, especially at night, you'd have an accident, and then you'd have another accident that just piled into the one you were working. We're all screaming. We're all calling for the help from the state police. And then somebody else would crash into it. And it would just keep going. And I remember staying quite late, several hours after my shift ended, on those types of accidents. Then you have to start calling people in from other parts of the city to help you. So, oh yeah, definitely. And then there's always somebody injured in something like that.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
hey, David, I've been dying to ask a New Orleans guy this question, and it's about Steven Seagal, a Louisiana guy. So he had that show where somehow, some way, he was a reserve copper, but he was also like a deputy chief, which I don't. I mean, I get he's a celebrity, but I don't understand how that works.
Oh, I can give you the rundown from that. What happened was, in the late 90s, about the same time I became a police officer, Steven Seagal did a movie in Louisiana, down in the New Orleans area. It may have been in New Orleans, but New Orleans is its own entity. It's not a city within a county, or we call them parishes in that area, but it's the same thing. Orleans Parish is the same footprint as New Orleans. So Steven Seagal had his show the next parish over, which is Jefferson Parish. The guy who was sheriff of Jefferson Parish was a Chinese guy by heritage. He was an American, and his name was Harry Lee. Harry Lee loved to have famous friends. He was friends with Ronald Reagan, but he was friends with the Clintons. He was a big shot in a big city, basically. And the area that it covered was bigger than New Orleans. So Harry Lee met Steven Seagal in his, maybe Seagal's glory days in the late 90s, like Under Siege days and Marked for Death and that time period.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I love those movies.
Yeah, I did too at the time. So Steven befriended Harry Lee. Harry Lee made him a reserve deputy. I don't know if he started out as a rank, like maybe a reserve sergeant, but he was definitely reserve. So technically, and only technically, he was a police officer. So every once in a while, he would come down and train Harry Lee's deputies in martial arts, which would have been Aikido or something like that, and shooting, which Steven Seagal was reportedly very good at shooting, just as Keanu Reeves is now. I don't know. I'd never trained with the guy. I'm just saying, as the years went past, he kept getting a bump in rank, to the point when he had his show Lawman, he was now a deputy, reserve deputy chief. And the show was absolutely ridiculous. But what was great about the show was, or what I find ironic, is Steven Seagal pretended to do on TV what I did for real.
Right.
We would hit the street in the task force unit, which is what New Orleans called it. We would look for dope deals. We would look for Dodge Intrepids, which at the time were almost all of them seemed to be stolen. So we would chase and we would run and we would fall downstairs and do all the fun cop stuff. And Steven Seagal, on the other hand, because I knew a couple of the guys on the teams in Jefferson Parish, they would go, and a real street crimes unit for Jefferson Parish would find a crime in progress or a dope dealer or get some guns off the street. And once it was all code 4, and they don't use that term where I am now, but that just meant everything was calm now. The suspects were all in custody, no danger anymore. Then Steven Seagal and 2 other chiefs that were in a car with him would roll up on the scene.
Yeah.
And what they do is they take the guys out of cuffs. They say, look, don't try nothing. We're with the Steven Seagal show. And they go, oh, man, Steven Seagal, for real? Yeah. You're going to have to sign a waiver and just, play along. And they would do that. So Steven would come up like he's the one that caught the bad guy. And he'd talk bad to him and he'd say, hey, what's this? Or he'd pull a gun out of their pants that had been previously cleared and unloaded.
Oh, boy,
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
And the guys on the street, we called them the little daddies or the little knuckleheads or whatever, but the guys on the street were so thrilled that they were getting to meet and actually be in an episode with Steven Seagal. Most of the time they would sign the waiver.
Yeah.
And they did not get paid for that, but they got a little bit of bragging rights.
Sure.
And as a person, to meet him, he was such an asshole. I mean, you got to wonder sometimes, was this guy ever cool? I mean, was he ever good to people? But no,
really,
he was, oh yeah. He looked upon, I met him when this same sheriff I spoke about, Harry Lee, when Harry Lee passed away, a lot of law enforcement from all over Louisiana came to pay their respects. Rightfully so. I think I lived in Jefferson Parish for a very long time, and I thought he was a good sheriff. And I actually met Steven Seagal at his funeral, and Steven Seagal had no time for anybody that wasn't either Steven Seagal or a female with a well-endowed female, shall we say.
Really?
And that's all Steven had. And that's how he got in trouble. His show ended because allegedly, I wasn't there, allegedly, he had, I don't know, a cleaning gal or some female trapped in a room and wasn't allowing her to leave. He was never, I don't think he was charged with kidnapping or anything else, but that pretty much ended his show. Then he went to Arizona, and then now he's doing, I don't know, 10 movies a month for streaming movies or something like that.
That doesn't shock me.
That was the story, though. He never worked like, hey, Steven, you need to come do your reserve duty, so you need to give us 25 hours this month, like most reserves would work. Right. He just came and went like as he pleased. He had super celebrity status, and that's how it went down.
So in New Orleans, the sheriff is the ultimate authority, or in Jefferson County, the sheriff's ultimate authority. He can just kind of go, boom, you're a deputy sheriff, you can carry a gun, here's your badge.
Absolutely.
No training.
Absolutely. And any parish sheriff has a lot of authority. A sheriff, and this is nationwide, is elected, so they have a lot more authority than a city chief who is appointed.
So post doesn't matter and none of that?
No. Or they can make post not matter. In other words,
damn,
now,
that's crazy.
I'm not saying anybody forged anything. I think that there were always special commissions. So I believe that Steven Seagal was just basically, hey, he's in the reserves, and that's all there is to it. You got a problem with it, you can argue with the sheriff. And nobody's going to argue with the sheriff of a county or a parish. So that's how that went down.
That's funny, man. Thank you for telling me. That's so funny.
Yeah.
He is an odd guy. I mean, you can't deny it. He just is, you can tell he's pretty full of himself in interviews and stuff. And he's always he's always trying to be overly zen. And it's just apparent. But I remember watching the show as a fan of Steven Seagal because the movies were so cool when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing them do like an OUI, like this guy's hammered. And basically the guy, his only punishment was a stern talking to by Steven Seagal. And then I don't know what actually happened, but in the TV show, they just let him go drunk, like drive his car. I'm sure they probably arrested the guy and like didn't let him leave.
Yeah.
But in the TV show, it was Steven Seagal saying, "Hey, you better, we don't have time for this because there's real crime, but you better get right home," or whatever it is. And they just let a drunk leave. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell that this sheriff's department is going to let a drunk driver leave the scene on camera. And it just was unbelievable to me. And I could tell. And the other thing about him too was like, they'd have him like in roll call at the front desk. Like he was, and being a cop, like you can decipher what's going on. You're like, he's holding roll call. Like the guy, like he worked the shift before or knows anything. Like he doesn't know anything probably what's going on, but he's at the roll call. He's at the front of the room at the podium or next to the podium when another chief gives a roll call. And I just thought in my head, like, there's no way, other than the celebrity status, there's no way these guys are taking marching orders from Steven Seagal. There's just no way.
No, their rank is on board, and I'm sure their rank, and again, I wasn't there for any of it, but I'm sure their rank said, hey, just smile for the camera, nod your head up and down when, Steven says anything. And then it was just on with the show. So New Orleans hosted Bait Car for a while, and I got to do some takedowns with the Bait Car team, but they were always cool. We had no problem with them, and they would use New Orleans officers undercover to do their Bait Car. That was real in as much as they would set up a car that had a remote kill switch. Somebody would take it, they'd shut it down, and then we would jump out and take people into custody. So, I mean, if Harry Lee gave Steven Seagal the old, bless you, my son, do what you want, then he got to do what he wanted. But, like I say, he was a celebrity, and I think he made some really good movies, but the man was absolutely never a police officer. That's almost stolen valor, but they don't call it that when it comes down to police. So it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. You imagine that if the U.S. government was like making honorary Marines and then like letting them go overseas and sit at the training desk. It's like, come on, guys. All right. Well, thank you, David. That was so friggin' interesting to me. Can you remember back in your career to the strangest or most bizarre call you went to?
Well, bizarre. New Orleans was a very bizarre place. We had a lot of suicides, and one time it was in the French Quarter. The call came out that someone had committed suicide. So I go up the stairs, and in the French Quarter, the ground level is all businesses. It could be a t-shirt shop, a gift shop, a strip club, a bar, lots of bars, and that's on the ground level. Second and third level are always apartments, and they have been subdivided over the years multiple times. So you will have a one-bedroom apartment, and they share a bathroom down the hall. So, I mean, at one point, maybe 40, 50 years ago, this was a house for an affluent person, but they've done it. Anyway, so we go up the stairs and we walk into a room, and this room is from a horror movie. There is a pentagram on the floor. There are black lighted posters. If you remember back when we were kids, you'd have a poster and it would reflect in a black light. Real scary stuff.
Hell yeah.
And there was the guy standing there looking at us. And if I didn't have any room to jump back 20 feet. If I'd had the room, I would have made the jump. And I've always been a fairly large person, if you know what I mean. So that would have been weird to see in and of itself. What he had done is, and he still had his top hat, he had a black cloak, and he was dressed total goth, or like somebody you would see that was a warlock or something like that, which was not that uncommon in New Orleans. But what he had done is he had hung himself, but only enough so that his feet barely touched the ground. He was suspended behind his neck, and I think it was looped or tied around the top of a door and down the back of the door to the doorknob. So he had just barely, it wasn't swinging like you might see in a cowboy movie, somebody being hung by a tree or anything like
Sure.
that. And sure as heck, he was ice cold. He had been hanging there for some time, but just barely hanging. And when we walked in the room, it almost looked like the corpse had come alive and was there to greet us. And I will never forget that. That was not that uncommon in New Orleans as far as the suicide part of it, but just that scene. And if we'd have had smartphones back then, I'd have pictures of it, even though that was strictly not allowed. But I mean, come on, you're going to take a picture of something like that.
Yeah.
But back around 2002 or so, sometimes we had disposable cameras, and we certainly weren't supposed to have those either. So there was no way to preserve that. But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
as far as the scariest one, the another terrifying moment, but this was terrifying for another reason, was 3 days into Katrina, myself and my task force team at the time, we called ourselves the Dirty Dozen because there was a dozen of us and we were pretty dirty by that point. And we had gone down to guard or to secure the New Orleans Convention Center. There were about 3,000 dirty, hungry, thirsty, and very angry people that were there. And everybody was outside because the heat. It's early September 2005. We could hear the gunshots going off inside the building, but we couldn't go in to put a stop to it or to investigate it. There's only 12 of us. We'd never make it out of there alive. So we would call it into radios that did not work. And as the night fell, I didn't know if we were going to make it through that one. I'm thinking, and when the crowd surges forward and decides to take us, we have to get out of there. We're certainly not gonna shoot into the crowd. We can't arrest 3,000 people that are giving us a problem.
Yeah.
And being the oldest, the sergeant was my age, but being the oldest patrol officer, I was 39 then. I'm telling everybody, look, when that crowd starts towards us, don't anybody be a hero. We're getting in these vehicles and we're getting out of there. We have to go. But I didn't know if we were going to make it. But interestingly enough, these enormous helicopters, and they were Marine Corps helicopters, landed in a field close by. And the Marines didn't just get out of the helicopter like we would have, like, hey, what's going on? What do we need to do? They came out and they formed up fast. They formed up in crisp military precision, which I wouldn't know anything about. I've never been in the military, but they looked damn good. And the crowd picked up on that.
And you were
all
happy
of a
to see
sudden,
him.
Yes, but the tension level just started to drop. And they formed up, and whoever was in charge of them, the officer or the sergeant, was shouting commands. And then they just turned and they marched towards us. And the closer they got to us, the more the crowd calmed down. And there was just this sense of, okay, authority is now here. Some authority is restored. And I'd never been I could have hugged one of them. I'm glad I didn't, but I was never so happy to see a group of people in my life. And then after a few hours of kind of sort of assisting with people getting on trucks, or the people in the worst shape, the diabetics that were dying literally, small children, the very old, they got on the helicopters, and everybody else, they started loading into trucks. And it was over with. That little event of Katrina was over with then. Those folks got to where they needed to go to get help. And after working about 27 hours without a break, we got to go get some sleep. So, but
That's
I
nuts.
thought, really, for the first time, because I was pretty confident when you're young and you're wearing that body armor and you got a door to kick, you think you're invincible. That
Sure.
is not the case. But that was the first time that I really thought we weren't going to make it. I just had this feeling, the hair on the back of your neck kind of is prickling you a little bit. And I just thought, I don't know. Yeah. And I said to the other guys, I said, hey, I don't know if we're going to make it, but we'd be able to stick together, but we did. Thankfully, we made it through.
Damn. And what was it? What was I know Katrina was happening, but what was the focal point of this civic unrest? Why were they there?
Well, when parts of the city flooded, They moved the people that lived in these flooded areas. They went and got them with those, I don't remember what they're called now, swamp boats. You know, they got the aircraft engine, aircraft propeller in the back.
Yep.
And they moved them. There were two places they moved these people to with no plan whatsoever what to do with them once they got there. That was the Louisiana Superdome and the New Orleans Convention Center. Now, I never made it to the Superdome, but the Superdome was horrible. People got raped in the Superdome. A couple of people got killed at the convention center. And later, the powers that be came forth and said none of that happened. That was a rumor. You know, it was safe there. No, I was there.
Everything's fine.
Not. That was a lie, yes. And they were telling us, the people in the convention center said, by Hall H, several people came to tell us that, there was a guy who had essayed, do I need to use YouTube language here, that had done something inappropriate with a 14-year-old. The crowd took care of that, made sure he would not do it again.
Wow.
And he was laying by Hall H, and I kept calling it in, but I was calling it in to no one. The radio didn't work. I wanted the crowd to think that we were doing something.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't know where that went. But again, we could not go into that convention center. There's only 12 of us. We would have to go in as a group. And as I said, we heard gunshots intermittently because some of the local gangs had been moved into the convention center along with everybody else. So and it was dark. There was no electricity. So we did not make entry. Later, the SWAT team did, and they took photos, media photos of the SWAT team clearing the place.
Sure.
But don't get me started on SWAT teams in general. If you were a part or are a part of one, no offense, it's just SWAT for me always stood for sit, wait, and talk. And we would always compete with the SWAT team as far as tactical stuff, training, the equipment we used. So yeah, I never played well with the SWAT team. That aside, you know.
Gotcha.
Good guys on the teams across this entire country. Excellent people on those teams. So I don't mean to disparage anybody. I just didn't have very good interactions with the ones in New Orleans. So.
Gotcha. So I have a question for you. So New Orleans it seems to be very Christian, but also has this, I'm Christian myself. It
Me
definitely
too.
in any movie you see. All right. Awesome. I love that. Any movie you see, there is this voodoo, this dark underbelly of, is it Cajun or Creole? Like where does the, the killing the chicken and the pentagram, where the witches, where does this all come from?
Voodoo originally came from Africa with the slaves, and it modified, or it was modified with Catholic practices, because New Orleans is a Catholic town.
Yes.
Going way back to the slave days when most people were Catholic.
Yeah, beautiful old churches there, old parishes and stuff.
And so that voodoo is just a reality, but it's more of a cultural thing than it is an actual practiced religion, if you understand what I mean. Certainly you have Marie Laveau, a very famous New Orleans practitioner of voodoo.
Yeah.
She's buried in St. Louis Cathedral number 2, I'm sorry. And as a backdrop, as a source for scary stories for kids, as something that can frighten people in general, it's there. And it's part of our culture. When you have Halloween, it's part of Halloween in New Orleans. It's when you go down to the French Quarter, there are 2 very large voodoo shops. But what I'm trying to say is it would be very hard for you to find a voodoo church, if you will. It would be very hard. You would have to be invited. I don't ever remember something like that being the source of murders. So I don't think that's going on. I think it over time, it evolved as more of a cultural point of interest. And it's not really a major religion, even in New Orleans now. The New Orleans is still primarily, for Christians, is still primarily Catholic. And I am a Catholic as well.
Nice.
There was one time we were doing a warrant on a house, and it was not in a historic area, and you wouldn't think anything of it. And I opened up a closet door inside the home, and there was a voodoo display in there. And I don't know much about the religion itself. So I don't remember seeing a headless chicken or body parts, nothing like that. But I remember there was a picture. It almost looked like a plant, but I think it wasn't so much a plant as maybe some sort of animal horns or something. And there was stuff draped on it. But the minute I saw that, I closed the door. I said, nope, not going to fool with anything in that closet. And we didn't.
Hell no.
So all of us New Orleans natives, we have a weird fascination, we're a denial and a fear all at the same time about voodoo stuff. So where I see something that I think might be voodoo, and I just shut the door, and we did not open that closet again. I don't know. I hope they didn't have a whole bunch of guns and dope stashed behind this thing that I saw. But as far as my experiences, that's what it was. Like I say, you can't look up, if you were to look up on the internet a voodoo church, it's going to be tourist. It's not going to be
part of the culture. It's part of the mystique.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep, that's the word I was trying to find, the mystique of the area.
Yeah. It's funny because it's, I was born Catholic, raised Catholic. I'm a confirmant in the Catholic Church. Now we attend a Lutheran church that is LCMS Lutheran. It's a very Catholic church. We do communion and baptism, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's very similar. But when I show my kids a movie like Coco, that movie from Disney, where they the Latino culture kind of melds into Catholicism. And how do you explain that to your kid where it's like, it seems Christian, it seems Catholic, but also there's all these added beliefs to it, these added kind of spooky things to the church where you're like, that's not what we believe. It's fun to watch, but it's like you don't want your kid to start believing oh, that's true. There's a rainbow bridge and the dead come back, and you know what I mean? Yeah. It gets confusing.
The Hispanic cultures, I think that's something called Santeria, which again was a combination of some other elements and Catholicism.
Yeah.
And it to a layperson, it has similarities to voodoo. If you spoke to a practitioner of either, they're going to have a problem with lumping those different religions together. But I know exactly what you're talking about. When they were formalizing their practices, there was always Catholicism and the statues of the saints and crucifixes and things. So all that got incorporated into these alternate religions, if you will. And as a Catholic from New Orleans, there's along with the mystique, as you said, there's a little bit of fear there. There's a little bit of, oh man, something wrong with this. Do not touch, big nope factor. And there still is, even though you're not going to find any of that where I am now. So that's
not
sure.
in Kansas, brother. Not at all.
Yeah.
Oh man, that stuff is so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
David, do you have a most intense or most terrifying call?
Yeah, let's see. Well, there was one that I was always a big, we're talking about Steven Seagal, and I was also a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan back in the 80s.
Brother, we're basically the same person, David.
Yeah. Well, I'm older than you. I was class of 1984, just to let you know. But the one night, and it was foggy, which just added to it. And I had kind of graduated from the task force unit that I'd been in because I'd been promoted to sergeant. Once you're promoted, they move you. So if you're in task force but you get promoted, now you're going to be back on patrol for a while. And but I didn't like my lieutenants, so I still hung with my old team to some extent. So I'm hanging out with them, and we're just talking. You'll probably edit this out, but we're just talking shit like all cops do all the time.
Yep.
and we hear the gunshots. So, okay, gunshots, we all know what that is. We start spreading out. Now we're looking for the source of it. And what I find is I look and I swear I saw a guy hanging upside down from a very tall fence. And if you remember in the Predator movie, when the Predator would skin people and he would hang them upside down, and that was a thing for the sequels to the Predator movie as well.
Right.
And that is what I saw. And my brain did a WTF, like, what in the God's name is this? So we ran up to the guy and he was still alive and he was yelling. What had happened was there was a dope deal in a backyard that had gone bad. That's hence the gunshots. And he had run, but he is shot several times center mass. So he had run, he had managed to just climb to the top of this fence, and they weren't sharp, but there were spikes on top of the fence. And he fell because he's starting to lose the ability to run and climb. And as he fell, the fence caught his shorts that he was wearing. So he's hanging upside down on a fence covered in blood when we walk up.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And it looked like one of the victims of the Predator, but he wasn't skinned. So we cut him down and we got him on the ground. And what is kind of sad is I kept asking him, because cops do this. I said, look, who did this? We're going to try to get this guy. Who did it? Man. And he's starting to go into that breathing. Now, it has a name, but we called it fish breathing. I think you know
Agonal.
what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I said, come on, just tell me. We're going to find who did this to you. I didn't tell him he was going to die. I was trying to tell him you're going to be all right. Ambulance was coming.
We lied to all of them.
Well, I'm trying to do the right thing. The ambulance got to us, but one of the EMTs looked at me and just shook his head. And I'm like, really? Yeah, he coded, and they did transport him to the hospital. They didn't leave him there with us, but yeah, he didn't make it. And I wish he would have told me more information just so that we could have better worked the case about who shot him. I think ultimately we figured it out. But whenever somebody dies in New Orleans, it becomes the responsibility of the the homicide unit to
Sure.
take care of. So they take over that investigation. But seeing a bloody person hanging upside down, screaming on a fence, I mean, that would
Wild.
never happen again in a million years, but it happened that night. So
That's nuts, brother. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
New Orleans is a hopping city. There's a lot going on there all the time. It's just, I mean, I can't imagine the money they spend for like Mardi Gras. Like, you must call in every agency surrounding for overtime.
Oh,
for
we do.
Detail pay.
Oh, we do. Mardi Gras is a 2-week, well, it's 12 days, but it's almost a 2-week nonstop party. Now, there are two sides to Mardi Gras. I don't know if I broke it down in that video I sent you, but what happens is there is a 2-week-long party. Nothing's free. You can't call it a free party. You can see a lot of stuff for free, but that's in the French Quarter. And in the rest
if you
of
have
the
the
city,
beads,
nightly,
you can see a lot for free.
Mhm. Exactly. But nightly in the rest of the city, they have a lot of parades, and that's more for the locals, although certainly tourists can go to them. You kind of need to know what parade to go to and what parade to avoid. Certainly what area you should avoid, because pickpockets and fights and things happen to people. But
Sure.
yeah, it's the city makes millions, and millions are spent on law enforcement. Everybody works overtime. We call in Jefferson Parish. Some Mardi Gras does
Steven
happen there
Seagal comes
too.
and takes care of everything.
Man, maybe he did. I don't know. That's a scary thought. But I don't have any Steven Seagal during Mardi Gras stories. But different parishes, other parishes in Louisiana would come. A lot of state police, a lot of correctional officers. So, and everybody gets dumped into the French Quarter because the French Quarter becomes a literal madhouse. As a matter of fact, I tell everybody, don't visit New Orleans during Mardi Gras. You can get the great food, you can see the sights, study the history if that's your thing. All the fun stuff that you think, or a person not from New Orleans thinks Mardi Gras is, you can get that year round. But if you come during Mardi Gras, you're not going to get a hotel room. It's going to be super expensive, and you probably will get beat up if you hang out on in the French Quarter too long. It happens. So.
I bet. What is a really great food dish that people wouldn't necessarily know about that is happening in New Orleans or during Mardi Gras? Like, what is a great dish? I'm just curious.
Jambalaya is one of my favorite New Orleans dishes. Jambalaya and gumbo. I think everybody's heard of them.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to think of is jambalaya and gumbo, an affluent person in the history of New Orleans wouldn't touch it. That is strictly poor people food. And it's not necessarily slave food. And I'm not a historian. I don't really want to speak about too much to that. But at one time, jambalaya is a rice dish with the seafood and shrimp and possibly a crawfish and things like that. Gumbo is a seafood stew. And my wife makes excellent gumbo and jambalaya. Very easy to make and very good.
So good.
But people may not realize that in the old days, if we're talking around 1800 and before, again, affluent people that lived in some of the nicer neighborhoods of New Orleans, and they're still there. I mean, not the people, obviously, but the homes would not have touched anything like that. You ate gumbo and jambalaya and remoulade and things like that because the plantation owner got to eat steak. Okay, that's where the money went. The stuff that was left over, stuff that you could catch in the bayou, or you could fish, and like I said, rice and things like that, and crabs that you could catch, blue crabs and things. Crawdads. That was strictly a poor person's staple, and now you will pay a lot of money eating those things when you go to one of like Antoine's or something like that. You're going to pay a lot of money for that poor people food. So
isn't that funny? I'm from a place called Cape Cod. It's a peninsula that sticks out of Massachusetts, and my grandmother told me. She said, because lobstering there is a huge thing, and lobster, as we all know, is a lot of money. It's expensive per pound, one of the most expensive seafoods. And she told me back in the day, you would send your kids down to the shore because lobsters were so plentiful. You could literally wade into the water and grab lobsters. They would send the kids down and say, don't let anybody see you, but grab a bunch of lobsters for supper because that was the food of poor people, because these are bottom feeders in the ocean. And Boston had a prison where they fed the prisoners lobster all the time. And as soon as that flip was made, where it became a delicacy, they stopped feeding the prisoners lobster. And the prisoners rioted. So once a week, they started feeding the prisoners lobster.
Wow.
To keep them from rioting. So same idea, like crawdad, lobster, like they're basically the same creature if you look at them. They're bottom feeders of the ocean. Nobody wanted them. That's what poor people ate. And now you go to get lobster at the restaurants, $50 for a friggin' when growing up in the Cape, we used to call them bugs. How many bugs did you get? Like sea bugs, It's just so funny how stuff like that works.
It makes that flip. It makes that flip from commoner food to now very expensive and expertly prepared in a fancy restaurant. So.
Yeah, they pre-crack it for you, and there's melted butter and all that. It's so funny. That's so interesting. David, can you tell us about a positive or heartwarming situation you've dealt with in your career?
I've had quite a few. One time, and this was something I was personally proud of. Awards for valor were given in New Orleans to people who the ranks smiled upon. And I think that's everywhere. I mean, it is what it is.
Politics,
But
brother.
yeah, so I got very few awards for whatever I did in New Orleans, and that's fine because I got it in here. I know how it went down, and that's all that mattered. But I was late for work, and my sergeant was mad at me. He was cool later when I told him the story. So I passed by these two people in parkas, not many parkas in New Orleans area, but anyway, we were on an elevated expressway over the I-10, and I noticed two people, and they were kind of on the edge. Maybe at that point they weren't sitting on the railing yet, but they were there. And I thought to myself, what are they, like workers or something? And then, you get that cop feeling there's something wrong here. So I said no. So I stopped and I start walking towards them. These people, because I'm in uniform, I got my lights on, the back lights on the police car are on. And one guy stops to look at what's going on, and another guy piled into him. And I looked, and then I just kept going. I said, good, now they're not going to hit my police car. There's something blocking it for, and nobody was hurt on that one. That was just a fender bender. And I get there, and there was this guy standing, young man. I mean, these two were in their 20s, young man, young woman. And I said, what's going on? And he said it just like this, and I'm going to do a bad impression of him. He says, my girlfriend's trying to kill herself. And I said, what? And I reached over because now she's sitting on the railing, and down from her about, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 feet is the interstate. So I grabbed her, and thank God I outweighed her by 100 pounds. So I wasn't going to go over had she gone. I grabbed her, and I yanked her bodily up and down on the ground. Then she started to fight. Just struggle, I mean, not
Sure.
Steven Seagal fight. And she said, I just want to die. I just want to die. And I said, look, you're not dying on my watch. You can die tomorrow, but today you're going to live. So I'm struggling. And of course, boyfriend is being no help to anybody. He didn't stop her from going up there, and he didn't help me with her. So I managed to grab my radio and call it in. And that's when the cavalry shows up. And we got her secured. And of course, a situation like that, she's got to go to the hospital now. We're not gonna charge her with a crime, although I'm sure you're not supposed to play on the railing of the above the interstate. But
Right.
so she's gonna go to the hospital. And I told the guys that responded. I said, look, I got to get to work. Y'all got this? And they said, yeah, we'll call you if we need any information. But it's pretty obvious what happened. So that was one of the best feelings that I had. Nobody came and told me or patted me on the head and said, gee, Dave, you did a good job. But when you're satisfied with yourself and something that you did, and I don't know, these two might have chickened out. Who knows? If I'd have just said to myself, man, I'm late, whatever that is none of my concern. I mean, you don't know. But I know we talked about Christianity a little bit. Every once in a while, I feel like I am in the right place at the right time. Not every time. Not every person who I've pulled over and gave a ticket for going 10 miles over the limit was a bad person. Not every gun I got off the street necessarily was a life saved, but we do it anyway. It's not about numbers. It's about why we do it. But every once in a while, I felt that I was in a place that I needed to be. And then I did the job I needed to do. And that was one of them.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I love that. Yeah, I mean, hey, I think we can both agree that God gives us our vocation, and you have it for a reason, and it's part of it's just part of it's.
I tell you, I like how you said that God gives you the vocation. I wasn't worth a damn before I became a police officer. I tried to be an engineer like my father, my Chinese father had been, but I had that German-Irish brain I got from my mom, and
Yeah.
so the engineering part wasn't going to happen. And then I did like everybody that goes to college but doesn't quite make it. You go into sales, I sold cars, and I did stuff that really ticked me off. I wasn't really enjoying, and nothing stuck, or I didn't advance until I started this crazy job. So, I mean, it was definitely worth it for me. And I tell younger officers that. It's sort of like a variation of the old cliche, you get out what you put into it. But as long as you're careful, as long as you got to go home at the end of the day, but you also want to stay home. Don't do something that's going to cause the feds to come drag you out of bed later. You gotta be so careful in this world today. But if someone asks me, is it worth it? Or even, um, I don't have any children, but if I had had a son or a daughter that wanted to go into the job, I would have told them, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll help you get there. But you get out what you put into it. This can be the best job on earth, or this can be hell on earth. It just depends on how you play it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe it's vocations given by God, and it's part of our good works. Part of your good works is embracing your vocation. If you're, a custodian somewhere, be the best custodian possible.
Yes.
Be happy, praise God. If you're a police officer, firefighter, the same thing. That's part of our good works is taking our vocation and embracing it and doing it.
Very briefly here, and this isn't part of my story, but my dad was a World War II veteran, but he fought in the Chinese army against the Japanese, so there was no veteran benefits or honors for him here.
Oh,
he was an
wow.
immigrant who loved America. I didn't know what the Chinese flag looked like until I went to high school, but I knew what the American flag looked like because it was flying outside my house. That's how my dad was. But at the age of about 40, which is about the age I found, well, I was younger than 40, but at the age of about 40, he made it to New Orleans and he got on a bus to go work in a Chinese restaurant as a dishwasher. I mean, this dude, my dad, had commanded thousands of troops and he was going to go be a dishwasher, but he was going to do what was necessary. Now, he started talking to a college professor that he met on the bus, and this guy convinced him to go to Delgado, which is a community college in New Orleans. And my dad retired many years later. He's passed away now, but he retired as a professor of aviation mechanics, and basically doing what, my dad asked this guy on the bus, well, if you want me to go to college, what do you do? And he says, well, I run the aviation program at this community college. So that's what my dad did, and that's what he was all the time I was growing up. So yeah, God sends you your vocation. So.
Absolutely. That's very cool, brother. I love that. Popular question for the show. People who are in backgrounds or thinking about being coppers, or believe it or not, I get emails from people that hear the men and women of law enforcement tell their tales from the job, and they decide to actually do the job. So we're making baby cops here, which I think is amazing. What is some advice you would give to police candidates getting into it now?
So much is in the public eye now, and you have to be so careful. So be very careful what you do, both before you're a police officer, when you're in the application process, and as on the street. Everything is social media now. Everything you do is going to be on a camera somewhere. So act accordingly, and I'm not saying don't steal and don't beat people up for no reason, because that's a given, or it should be. But everything you say, everything you post, it lasts forever. And you have to be aware of that. So many officers get in trouble. You might have an opinion. We had, and I'm not going to mention any names about this one, but we had one of our officers, they did a traffic stop, and the kid was backing up 8 years. So he didn't want to go to jail. So he comes out the car shooting. 2 of our officers got shot up pretty bad. No one died. Well, he died because they fired back and shot him. This friend of mine, his taser wouldn't come out of the holder later because it had taken a bullet that he didn't know about. And our mayor and chief of police at the time made a big point about embracing the shooter, the shooter's family, and all of this kind of stuff. We're going back to probably around 2009, I believe. So anyway, the senior rank and the politicians were embracing this kid's family. And they were chanting, it wasn't quite the BLM movement yet, but they were chanting justice for Justin, because this kid's name was Justin. And my friend had a lot of survivor guilt. None of the officers died, but his two friends got all shot up, and he came out without a scratch. So one night, there were people on social media that were attacking his wife. And he
Oh,
made a
boy.
statement similar to, on social media, similar to, if you live like a thug, you're going to die like a thug. And he got
Accurate.
fired for that.
Wow.
And I understand why he made that statement. I probably would have done the same thing. He didn't say, I wish I could kill more people or anything like that, but it was politically charged at the time.
Yeah.
And that was something that our city administration was not going to tolerate. And they fired him over it. Now, I think years later, he was able to maybe join a small town department or something like that. But, so my advice to younger officers would be more so than my generation. You have to be so careful what you say and what you do on and off duty. Off duty does not mean you're out of the public eye. So I would almost say, like, when we were young and coming up through the academy, and we were warned that there are friends that you need to not be friends with. You need to sever some ties.
I remember that talk. Yeah.
If they're in the, that's family also. If they're in the, so now I would say there are practices and things you do that you're going to have to disassociate with. Even to the point, one pet peeve of mine was telling my younger officers, I was a sergeant for 15 years in New Orleans, and I would tell them, you've got to stop going to bars. It sucks. It's bad. It's like, well, why don't I have a freedom to go to a bar? Because if anything happens in this bar, if you get into a fight that's not your fault, you are going to get in trouble. And doggone it, it kept happening.
Yeah.
If you leave the bar drunk and you get pulled over, they are going to come at you harder for a DUI because you're held to a higher standard. There was a time when another cop had just let you go, but that's long in the past now, and you cannot depend on professional courtesy. And so, like I say, I know it's tough, but if you want to preserve your career, if you want to make it to my level, where I have a halfway decent pension from the state of Louisiana, and I don't have to work as hard or worry as much, you have to make some sacrifices. And the sacrifices might be, you can't post your opinions on TikTok or Facebook like you may have been able to do before. You can't go to bars, and yes, there are some friends you might want to avoid. I would definitely recommend don't date strippers, but that seems to be a pitfall that a lot of cops fall into. But I would recommend against it. But
absolutely. Dave, now I agree. We are in murky waters now. And I find I do this podcast and I give my views on some things. Now, it seems as though I could be in hot water for espousing my Christian beliefs, which is something I never thought would really be a thing, because Christianity was our country. Our country was founded on it. The laws are founded on Christianity. The founding fathers, I think like 55 and 56 of everybody put the document together, were like legit Christians. Not only that, they went to church every Sunday. So that puts me in a weird spot where I'm like, because I will never shy away from the gospel and sharing that in my Christian beliefs, but it really does kind of put a target on cops where it's like, depending where you work, and I work in a politically charged area. I work in the Northeast. Yes. I interview cops from all around the country. In some places, it's not a big deal. But where I'm at, like, I think about that a lot. I think about, like, I mean, my Christian beliefs are not really any different than Charlie Kirk's. And people in the Northeast a lot of them are happy he's dead and celebrated that. So I would say, if you are Christian, that is one area I think we can't back away from. And if I were to lose my job over it, what can I say?
Well, we're neutral in that we're not judging people based upon their religion. But I definitely agree with you. I've never found a reason to hide my own beliefs. When I was much younger, I used to protest abortion clinics, and I guess if I got arrested doing that, I might not have been a cop later. I really don't know.
Right.
But I've never, I've gotten into, I've lost friends over my views on abortion. I'm extremely anti-abortion, which I
Me
think
too.
definitely all Catholics should be, but I think all
Yeah.
Christians should be. But definitely got me in trouble where I work right now. But now when I say trouble, I just mean, you know, maybe some weird comments and things like that. I did not, I didn't get in trouble with the administration over that. But I'm not afraid to mention it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. But day to day, most people here basically are Christians. We might have a few that identify as something else that they weren't born as, shall we say, and they would probably have a problem with that. But oddly enough, the death of Charlie Kirk affected a lot of people here, and it was horrible. It was sad. It has inspired a lot of people here to both speak their mind politically and go back to church. So, and I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about New Orleans. New Orleans itself was extremely progressive, and I would run into that all the time. I would just, just deal with it. There was a lot you couldn't talk about in New Orleans, and
I agree with that. In uniform, I try to, unless I see some,
Right.
unless I'm on a call where I see an opening and someone I know, I can get the feeling that they're Christian, I'll start talking about it. But I fully believe that, like, when we're in uniform as police officers, there's nothing more unattractive than a cop in uniform talking politics. So I just don't do it, because we are there to serve everybody equally. And I think the saddest thing about this whole Christian pushback is, in the police world, is you really, people don't realize it, but you really want Christian cops. We are loving. We serve people. We are not taking that. We're not persecuting people when we work. We're looking at it in more of a loving nature when we take care of the community. We are not bigoted or biased in our service as police officers. We are doing our vocation. We are taking care of it. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are or anything else politically. We are there to serve the community, and we're going to do that, and we're going to hold ourselves as Christians to the highest standard of care for you. And they really think we can't parse. They really think that we're not forgiving, and that we're not loving, and that we don't love our neighbor. But that is like a tenet of what we do.
Yes, I agree with you, but most people, I saw police officers go from being more or less trusted and more or less respected in the late 90s to absolutely mistrusted in, say, around 2015 or so. And it was a collective society buying into an absolute lie that police officers were brutal. And what really started that was the Trayvon Martin case, which did not involve police officers. That guy...
Isn't that crazy? It's so crazy. They blame us for it.
The guy that kicked that off was a security guard of some type. I don't know. I'm not really sure what he did and didn't do. I wasn't there. I know what was reported, but that kind of was the spark. And from there, everybody seemed to lose faith, lose trust in officers. There was a time when if a police officer was coming to the stand, it was a benefit to the prosecution. I saw that go to, in New Orleans, if a police officer was coming to the stand, and if it was a jury trial, then the police officer was a liability. You were better off as a DA not calling a police officer to the stand, because people would, and
because they coupled that with Michael Brown. I think that's what happened. The Trayvon Martin. Yeah.
Well, people in the media who were not necessarily our enemy would always say these little things like, oh, and we all know that there has to be drastic changes in policing in this country. I saw drastic changes before it was demanded. I saw drastic changes from 1997 to 2007. I saw backing away, trying to be more of a doing de-escalation, and we all lived through that. And right about the time that New Orleans had really no officer involved incidents, very few officer involved shootings, was the time when the national protests hit. And now all of a sudden we're bad guys again. And it's like, what did we do? A few police officers made it into the public eye. In some cases, the cases were not what people said. It was a lie. For the cases where they did catch bad cops, I'm sorry, there are bad Walmart managers too. It is what it is. The vast majority of us are doing this job for the right reasons, and to be collectively drug across the coals like that, and all labeled as somehow crooked cops, that was something very difficult for me to come to terms with. You didn't have a choice. I mean, you could get out of it. I don't know, you could go be a Walmart manager, right? But, nobody considers that. What they consider is, well, the cops are bad, so they need more training, or they need to be prosecuted themselves, or we have to do this big drastic thing to make cops good again. And all of that was a lie. All of that was, you took maybe 5 really bad incidents, and you labeled us all. If I label a person now as a thug or a crackhead or a meth addict based upon what they look or who their family is, then that's not accepted. Then I'm a bad person if I do that, and I don't do that. But that was done to us nationwide. And we are experiencing the fallout from that now. We have a shortage of police officers where I am right now. And the ones that take it up don't stick. A lot of times they leave, and they leave here, and they leave law enforcement, and then they go work in the aircraft industry. And that's a big thing in the Wichita area. And it's hard to keep these good people. And from corrections, law enforcement, I think first responders, period, but definitely law enforcement, it is hard to find people to do this job now. And I think a lot of that is because of what happened when potential officers were in high school. That's when all that protest stuff was going on, right before COVID hit. And it tarnished our reputation. It damaged the image of the job, and I think for no reason, meaning I think it was a completely undeserved.
Yeah.
So
I totally
being
agree,
a cop,
Dave.
that's what I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, the de-escalation thing, I'm going to barf if I hear one more city manager talk about de-escalation. It's like, yeah, we as cops, we've been training on that word for 30 years. Like we know all about it. Like, and also don't forget, de-escalation can involve some use of force. I mean, it's not just talking the bad guy down. Like, why didn't you just talk to the homicidal maniac?
Use of force is considered a bad thing in every case. And a police administration, some police admins are like that. It's like, yeah, but whenever you need force done, you call us. You don't call firemen, you don't call EMS. When you need somebody removed from a situation because there's a threat, because they are violent, because people are going to get hurt if we don't step in, that's what we have to do. But the idea of force is now, I think people really believe that all we need to do is negotiate. All we need to do is sit down and view both sides and say, and a lot of times we don't have the time for that.
Yeah. Come on, Dave. Everybody's rational. You can definitely talk reason into every single person.
It seems that way when the rational people are the ones about voicing their opinions, but they got a lot of people out there that aren't rational. And there's still a need. There's as much, if not more, of a need for law enforcement as there ever has been. But there are just less of us. And my generation is absolutely on its way out. Most guys my age are retired now or thinking about it. I'll be gone within 5 years, no doubt. And it's okay. That's time progresses, but I just hope that the generation coming up behind me can handle it. I hope at least better than I'm seeing now. We'll see.
Well, that's the, I mean, I'll let you go here soon because we're going an hour and 20, but that's the great irony.
Yeah, I got to go soon myself. But
the great irony of police reform is that it's caused people not to want to do it. And so now we're lowering standards. And so now you're actually going to get the officers that you don't want, that are going to violate your rights, that shouldn't be cops because you've created this shitstorm. And we can't get the people, the dudes that we wanted. So now we're going to get these people we lower the standards for, and then it's going to be this self-perpetuating, snake eating its own tail thing.
I don't want to get anybody particularly angry, but we're getting too many correctional officers that move over to trying to be cops, and they some people need to stay in corrections. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I know some guys came from corrections, or that's how you got your start. In some communities, if you join the sheriff's department, they're going to put you in corrections, whether you want to be there or not, kind of prove yourself and then come out. And that's fine. But like I say, exactly what you said, we're getting some people in almost out of necessity that don't really need to be here. So as you say, it's just that snake eating its own tail. That's that perpetuation. And I don't know. I wish I had some answers. Just do the best we can. Keep fighting forward. You can't retreat, Yeah.
Well, hey, Dave, thank God for guys like you that will do a career like you did at New Orleans and then continue on serving the community where you're at. It's truly awesome. I love the interview we just had. It was so great. And I'm truly honored you came on the show, Dave. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice. It was good talking about this stuff. Hit me up again sometime. I got nothing but stories, and I have a big mouth. So, well,
that's the exact kind of guests I need, brother. So I definitely will. Can you hang on like 2 minutes when I do the outro? Or do you need to go? You can.
I kind of got to go. I've got a dinner to attend for that. The guy I told you I had. Unfortunately, I buried him on Saturday, and I'm looking at the time now, and I gotta get ready for that. But
all right, brother, we'll get out of here. No problem. Thank you, sir. Like I said, honor to have you, and let's link up and let's do another one.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Take care. The great David Leang, everybody. What a fun interview. So cool to have somebody on from New Orleans PD. Just such a crazy city. And he took his skills and he's helping out a smaller community where he lives now in Kansas, which is just so cool. This is a time in the show when I thank the Patreon sponsors. You guys, if you've really enjoyed the free content and you've heard it all and you loved it, and you want to give to old Stevie Boy monetarily, which I appreciate, especially with the prices of everything, let's say, definitely hurting like everybody else. So I really appreciate joining the Patreon, and the link is in the show notes. And now I'm going to thank the sponsors. Going to be lieutenants are first. I'm talking about the great and powerful Andy Biggs, Kyle Roberts, everybody, Lieutenant Michael Roach Machines AI Solutions. Check him out. Now to the sergeants, the handsome Lane Campbell, Gary Steiner, everybody, Adam Mihal, love you, buddy, Tony Fahey, come on, guy, you're the best, Seth Wright, thank you, sir, John Shoemaker, you're the best, Lauren Stimson, here for the long haul, thank you, Lauren, Jason Lau, my man Jason, Sasha McNabb, thank you, Sean Clifford, everybody. Give Sean a hand. Tammy Walsh holding it down in dispatch. Thank you so much, Tammy. Greg Gadboy, my man Greg, you are fantastic. Iceman, Motor Cop Chronicles. Check out his podcast. Thank you, Iceman. George Tessier, ladies and gentlemen. Dennis Carrasquillo, my man. Thank you. Scott Young, everybody. Scott. Iceman from Burley Boards. Thank you, sir. Check out, I screwed that up. Dan Carlson from Burley Boards. Check out his Instagram, man. Amazing woodworker. Doug and Kelly Newman. Love you guys. See you at church. The great Raymond Arsenal. Thank you. Richard Tolles. Keep on trucking, brother. You are the man. I appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Elliot Sykes. Yes, sir. Thank you. Brad Thompson. Big Bear Security. I believe that's the name. Check him out. My man, Brad. Nancy Hammond. Thank you, Madame. Clark Lacoff. You are appreciated. Thank you. Adam McMahon. Thank you, sir. Sheriff Ronald Long. Thank you, Sheriff. Zachary Pleat. Come on, guy. I appreciate it. Jason, the great Jason Labrie. Thank you. George Carey Otis. Thank you, George. Dylan Mosher. Come on, guy. Jason. John and Aaron Kate. Love you guys. See you at church. Lisa Gano. Thank you. Sherry Finch. Thank you. Gabriel Decknop. Thank you. Eric Smith. You're the man. I appreciate you. Sam Conway. Jackson Dalton. Black Box Safety. Check him out. The great Marcus Johansson, everybody. And Brett Lee. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I truly appreciate the donations. Keeping the boat afloat is so amazing. At the end of the month, I get the payment, pays the bills, and there's a little extra there for old Gingerface. So thank you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.